The Oklahoma Sooners got a big win on Friday night. What did we learn? What are we worried about? We'll discuss coming up next on Locked On Sooners.
You are Locked On Sooners, your daily podcast on the Oklahoma Sooners. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, Sooner Nation? Welcome to Locked On Sooners, and thank you for making Locked On Sooners your first listen every single day. Shout out to all the everydayers. Today's episode is brought to you by 5-Hour Energy. 5-Hour Energy fixes tired fast with zero sugar and a convenient portable size. It's the perfect pick-me-up for getting stuff done. Go to 5hourenergy.com and use promo code LOCKEDONCFB to receive 20% off your order. This offer is only valid until September 30th on one order and cannot be used with other promotions. Go to 5hourenergy.com today. He's Jay Smith. I'm John Williams, and thank you for subscribing to Locked On Sooners wherever you get your podcasts. The Oklahoma Sooners beat Temple 51-3, and there was a lot of really positive things to take away from the show or from that game, which was a show, at least on one side of the football. So let's start defensively, Jay, and let's just talk about what were the things that really stood out to you from that defensive performance.
The control that the defense had the entire game, right? You can tell that this defense is going to be what leads us. I've said this ad nauseum. I want y'all to understand. This defense is going to do everything for us, right? We went out there and got 6 turnovers. First time since 2003 against Texas. 6 turnovers. 4 fumbles. 2 picks. I think the crazy thing for me, John, is that we got 4 fumbles. Last year we recovered 6 fumbles and forced 8. This game, we forced 4 and recovered 4. So you can tell that the defense intensity is there, and they're trying to knock people's heads off. And I love it. That's what we've been needing.
Yeah, it was a very physical performance. I think to the Robert Spears Jennings fumble, like the dude had that well secured, and Robert just hit him straight in the back and coughed it up. Like the dude couldn't handle it. The Ethan Downs fumble strip was really impressive because was it Forrest Brock? He made 2 guys miss on the play. One was a D lineman and one was Danny Stutsman. And then Ethan Downs comes from behind and strips the ball out. Dejon comes up with it for the first turnover of the game. So I really liked the physicality. I mean, Lewis Carter's forced fumble on the punt return. That was just a nice hard hit. And then Jaren Cannon comes up with the scoop and score. So it was a very physical performance. That's a great sign for what this team wants to be defensively. They want to be fast. They want to be physical. And I like the way that they started the season.
It makes me think about how last season a lot of the opposing coaches pointed out just how fast and physical the defense was for Oklahoma. But we didn't see it close out in the season, right? So the end of the season wasn't us being as fast and physical, as attrition was hitting us. In this game, it showed like we were fast and physical at multiple levels of the depth. So it wasn't just the starters doing it or just even the 2 deep. The 3 deep was starting to get into there and start costing stuff. Like you said, Lewis Carter, hit and deuce. We know that the Crimson Missile can hit, but when he really leveled that dude and Jaren Cannon, with the great awareness of seeing where the ball is, scooping it up and getting that score, you can tell that this defense is going to play different. That defensive line as well, the pressure that they put Forrest Brock into the entire game, he looked nervous. Like I can see it in his eyes. It was almost like when you saw, who was it, Gunnar Gundy, the video of him, his hand shaking, trying to call for the snap. It felt like that with him because every time Brock turned, he saw someone coming and he immediately found a way to get rid of the ball. He was quick. And the pressure we was putting on them is everything that we've been wanting, especially the defensive line.
I was really, really impressed with the defensive line. We know that Dominic Williams is going to be good. We expect, Jaden Jackson has just blown up in spring and fall camp. So we're excited and optimistic about what he's going to do. Dejon Terry, is going to be solid there in the middle. I was impressed with Grayson Halton. The promise has been there for the last couple of springs, right? We've kind of expected this breakout dating back to last year. I just remember the spring game a year ago in 2023, him just blowing everything up and then talking with Ted Roof after the game and him saying all it really comes down to for him is just consistency. And okay, maybe now we're starting to see it all put together because the dude was absolutely disruptive. He had the other forced fumble, had a sack and a half, and just looked so quick off the line of scrimmage and just so physically imposing. And that's a really, really great sign for him. But I think you could say that about a lot of the defensive tackles. I mean, they might have been, if you want to like segment down a position group to who was the best position group on the night, I really think you could say the defensive tackle group was by far the best position group on the night.
Yeah, no, 100%. It's even better. You can go back to, you can go into the third deep there. You get to Marcus Strong. He played 3 snaps in the game and got 2 sacks.
Right.
He played 3 snaps and got 2 sacks, John.
He was ready.
Oh, he said he was going to take this opportunity. Oh, you going to play me? Got you, coach. Went out there, got himself 2 sacks on 3 snaps. Yep. Hey, he's one of the players that's right there at the 300-pound mark. I think he's 299 is his current weight. And we know that we need more 300-pounders. If he, eats a couple of more, Uncrustables post-game and, throughout the week, he'll hit that number. But he's also showing that he has the ability to be a force. I loved him as a recruit because he had some strong hands, no pun intended. He would grab dudes at the line of scrimmage, and they couldn't let go. He wouldn't let go, and they could not get away from him. And so that just makes me feel more encouraged that as we go further into the depth chart, we got more dudes that are able to play.
Yeah, there's one play in particular that I just remember. It was Ashton Sanders and Grayson Halton at defensive tackle, and then it was R. Mason Thomas and Ethan Downs at the edges. And like all 4 of those guys got to force Brock, and you're like, okay, who do we give the sack to there? Because like somebody caused the pressure for him to have to step up into the pocket a little bit. The defensive tackles both got a piece of him. Ethan Downs also got a piece, and Armace. It's like everybody got a piece of him on that one play, and they just rushed 4. And listen, I get it. It's just Temple, and you can't just extrapolate everything that you want to do against this team. But there were moments that you're like, this football team belongs on a different field than Temple. Like Temple is not even playing the same game as what this defense is playing. So that was really, really exciting to see.
Adding to, I think there was one play with Grayson Halton as we go back to him and how exciting we are about the way he was playing. There was one play where when he got his sack, basically had him and Trace Ford lined up. Trace Ford went out to the flat and he came around that tackle and he hit him with that swim move. And I was like, ooh, so that was sick. And he was so fast. And like I said, Forrest Brock was terrified the entire time. And then you add in a Kendall Dobie blitz.
Yeah,
he has gotten really good at masking his blitzes as well as getting there fast enough to where the defender can't do anything about it. And one person I noticed too behind him, Reggie Powers the third, RP3, he did the same thing and he masked his well enough. And I think he's following Kendall Dobie's lead that the quarterback wasn't even sure that he was blitzing. And then when he got too close, he was able to step up, but he ended up getting sacked. It was like, okay, we may have ourselves a nice group of cheetahs going forward.
Yeah, and I think you could say that this team played really confident. Like the defense really played with a level of confidence and I don't want to say swagger, but it kind of bordered that, right? They were just playing so aggressively, so fast, so confident. And I think this is a bit of the Zach Alley, influence a little bit. Ted Roof, he's been around a long time, but when you listen to the guy speak, and again, maybe he's different in the locker room, he just doesn't give off that air of confidence. When Zach Alley speaks, you believe him, right? When Zach Alley speaks, you're ready to go play football and you're fired up and ready to roll. So, man, I think that might be a big difference in what we're seeing as this team, like from the defensive line to the defensive back group, from the first guy on the depth chart to the fourth guy on the depth chart. Everybody that got in the game had a sense of belief about him and a sense of confidence, and they made an impact in the game.
I wonder if it was also that a lot of the players weren't sure if it was BV talking to him or if it was Zach Alley. Because if you really think about it, and look, I listened to him at a press conference not too long ago once again, and I told people to listen to this with their eyes closed, and everybody's kind of like, wait, is that BV or is that Zach Alley? It's just, they're the same dude, right? He's got to be like a clone out of a lab, right? He's got to be, how they were like cloning sheeps years ago in some machine. They had to have gone in a machine with Brent Venables and made Zach Alley because the dude sounded like. But yes, to your point, that young energy that he's bringing in to this defense, he called the entire game, and it felt different than it did last year. And I'm thinking that's probably why, because he called the entire game, and you're like, okay, he's going to mix things up and really be a terror this coming season.
We'll get into more about the defense. We'll talk some about the offense as well and who stood out individually in week 1 coming up on Locked On Sooners. Hey, Locked On Sooners fans, I want to take a moment to give you a heads up on a brand new mobile game that I think you are going to love as much as I do. Ultimate College Football Head Coach. In this amazing game and simulation, you get to step into the shoes of a head coach and lead your college football program to glory. Can you imagine being the head coach of the Oklahoma Sooners? Or hey, maybe you want to take on a bigger challenge and go take on Temple and build them up into a national power. From recruiting players and hiring coaching staff to overseeing training camps and handling school scholarships, you control every crucial detail of your program. It's all in your hands. Will you be able to handle the pressure? And here's what I really love about the game. You are responsible for calling offensive plays during the games. Your strategy will not only determine the success of your football season, but will shape the future and legacy of your program. Ultimate College Football HC is completely free, has no ads, and is 100% playable offline. You can play on the go as you want and when you want to. And, of course, we have a special offer for Locked On Sooners fans. Use the promo code LOCKEDONCFB, all caps, inside the game store to receive a free boost to your program. Make sure to take advantage of this perk as it will get your team off to a strong start. To download the game, just visit ultimate-cfb.com, ultimate-cfb.com, or look it up on the app stores. Ultimate College Football Head Coach, begin your coaching legacy today. College football is back, and you want to know what's going on across the country. Make sure you check out the Locked On College Football previews every week from your favorite conference, whether it's Locked On SEC, Locked On Big Ten, Locked On ACC, or Locked On Big 12. Our stable of college football experts are getting you ready for each week's action. You can check out Jay. He's going to be around every week, letting the SEC folks know what's going on. You can also go subscribe to the Locked On College Football podcast with Spencer McLaughlin, who's taking you across the nation with the top storylines as well. So, Jay, it was a big weekend. We saw a lot of good things from the defense. Let's talk about the offense. We know that they had a very vanilla game plan going into the game. And yet, I still wanted to see more from this team on offense.
You know, it's funny because I asked a lot of people this question, asked fans this question as well. At what point in this game did you not think this team was going to win by 5 touchdowns? Like, and be honest with yourself, because to me, there was not one moment from the opening kickoff to halftime that I thought that we were not going to win by 35. It was just one of those, you could tell that they weren't really trying to go out there and just fully destroy them. They were playing a script, and you can tell that it was scripted out, right? Once we went deep a couple of times, so in the entire game, Jackson Arnold threw the ball more than 20 yards 4 times. And only three of those counted because the fourth one was an offsides. He went deep to Ivan Carry-On, so it didn't count. But you can tell that their entire plan was, we want to see if you can throw the ball across the middle when linebackers don't know what the play is. Because we remember the reports coming out of fall camp was Danny Stutsman was putting that dude in a blender, right? He was terrorizing Jackson Arnold with, being around, getting interceptions, knocking out passes, etc. Well, most of the passes, I think out of his 25 passes in the game, 14 of them was across the middle, within the line of scrimmage to 10 yards. It was right in that spot. So it looked like they really were just testing it out to see how he could do across the middle, not turn the ball over. Yes, just like you, John, I hated it. I wanted more. But at the same time, I understand why you would do something like that, because this is a moment of actual game reps against a team that's actually planning against you, for you to see what everybody's made out of. I wasn't happy either. I wanted more, but at the same time, I get it. It makes sense for a coach to do that.
And here's where I say I wanted more. The way they approached the passing attack, fine. I'm cool with it. You didn't need to unload a full clip to beat Temple. You didn't have to do that. When I say I wanted more, I wanted a more physically imposing offensive line in the running game. We sat here on the show last week and we talked about what would it take for us to feel like this was a quote unquote win for Oklahoma. And we both mentioned that we needed a dominating offensive line performance where they ran the ball really well. And yes, they ran for over 230 yards. Or maybe around 220.
220, yeah.
You take sacks out of the equation, which I love to do because sacks as rushing stats are stupid, NCAA. But it just was not consistent, especially in the first half. They averaged 4.1 yards per carry, but Gavin Sawchuk didn't really get off and running. I felt like Jovantae Barnes was maybe their best back in the first half. He looked really good. He was getting downhill quick. But it just never felt like there was a lot of easy openings. Now, it looked a lot better in the second half as you went to your second string offensive line. They went deeper into their depth chart, and then Taylor Tatum just took the world by storm. But I wanted to see the offensive line do a little bit more, open up some more holes, get a little bit more push in the run game, and then be able to provide Jackson Arnold with a little bit more pass protection, a little bit more comfortability back there. Listen, I get you're not going to show your whole hand against Temple. That's not what you're going to do. But when you do call a play, I do expect you to be able to execute it a little bit cleaner against a team like Temple, even if it was just a base dive. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, no, and you're right. It's funny because in a lot of the runs, I was listening to Gabe and Teddy over the Oklahoma breakdown, and one thing Gabe pointed out was majority of the runs were to the weak side. And he laughed about it because he pointed out, and you got to go check those guys out. They're always great in breaking down actual, former players, giving you details of what they've seen. But he pointed out how when Taylor Tatum got that big run that he got, I think it was the first run he got, or it was the third one. I got to go back and relook. But basically, when he ran it, he actually ran it on the tight end side. And the strong side linebacker was so shocked the ball was actually coming his direction that he wasn't in place to go ahead and get the tackle. And I was like, I see it now. I get what you're saying because that was what it was. They were trying, you could tell they were trying new stuff out even in the run game, right? They were trying new stuff with the offensive line. They were testing out how people were going to react. There was one thing, though, that did really jump out, and a lot of people were not, they were perturbed, and Gabe was as well. And I disagreed with him on this. He was talking about how when Hickman went down, it should be an indictment on Bates as to why he didn't go in immediately. And to me, I didn't think that made sense because you just lost Hickman. Troy Everett is still trying to get healthy. Bates is injured but not hurt. He can play. Yeah, he's dinged up. He can still play, but one wrong move could take him out. I felt like the goal there was to see if anybody else can play center if Bates can't go either, because that means you'll be down 3 centers. Mm-hmm. You need to figure out the next person in game time. So I got why you wouldn't put Bates in immediately. You let him go ahead and come in with that next unit. And to be honest, that young unit, I kind of want to see more of them with EPL. And I kind of want to see more of that. We probably should do more of that, especially against Houston.
Yeah. And listen, I get Jake Taylor was not in. You lost Branson Hickman early in the game. But listen, I guess I just expected them to be a little bit better than Temple was up front. I did think Fabechi Wiwu created some really nice holes on the right side when they had some success, even with like Sam Franklin in the game. They were running a lot of dive and a lot of power, and they were running kind of behind him a little bit more. So I like that. I think that creates some really good opportunities. When they got into short yardage, they were really effective running behind him. And I thought the left side of the offensive line played fairly well. I thought Michael Tarkin and Jacob Sexton, were good. Whenever Gary Hatchett had to bump into center, I thought they played really well together. Spencer Brown, you hope you don't have to rely on Spencer Brown a whole lot. In certain circumstances, maybe he can be an effective run blocker for you, but as a pass protector, not great. Offensively, some positive things to take away, dude. Deon Burks is a dude, man. That guy is so freaking good. And I think they were also trying to rein in just how much they wanted to show of him in this game. And they still caught 3 touchdowns, but they weren't like letting him turn on the afterburners and get downfield either.
Yeah, no, not at all. We you could tell it purposely did not go just release the Deon Burks on folks. But I did like the fact that that Jackson Arnold made the play change at the end zone and told Burks to go do a fade instead of whatever he was going to do. And then hit him perfectly in stride for that touchdown. The other great play. The next one out there, Bauer Sharp, that touchdown. I don't think that first touchdown is getting enough acknowledgement because what I noticed is as soon as Jackson Arnold started scrambling, Bauer Sharp, it seemed like his route was supposed to kind of veer towards the out of bounds. Instead, he kept doing this, looking back. And so he was looking to see where the defender was, and he started fading towards the actual end zone. So when Jackson Arnold dumped it to him, he could catch it and fall right there. You could tell the awareness, and it seems like the relationship between two is strong, which, John, we got a tight end situation that's going to work. Oh, my goodness.
Yeah, Sharp
I feel great.
Good. Yeah. And this is what I said in our, in the show after the game. If that's what you get out of him is, 5 for 50, 6 for 60, stuff like that, 4 for 55, man, that's what you need right there. You don't need him to go be Mark Andrews and catch 150 yards,
Nope.
catch 8 passes in a game. If he does that, fantastic. By all means, go do that. But if he at least gives you 4 for 50 and a touchdown most weeks, then you're going to be really, really liking what you got out of the tight end position. We'll have a few more positive takeaways. We'll continue to talk about who stood out and give out maybe some week 1 awards coming up next here on Locked On Sooners.
After my day is over, I'm pretty exhausted, but I still need to get myself to the gym. And so what do? Grab myself a 5-hour energy. It always is a great way and a great pick-me-up so I can get that good workout in that I really need, especially that sweat. Got that sweat equity going around here. And with 0 sugar and a convenient portable size, it's the perfect pick-me-up for me to get stuff done. You can go check out their website. They've got all the flavors you want, watermelon, tropical burst. They've got berry, which is one of my favorites. You can definitely find the one that you like, or you can go try them all. And then on their site, they give you an option to build your own 12-pack or 24-pack. You choose your flavors, and they deliver it right to your door. So you got to go check it out. If you go to 5hourenergy.com, that's the number 5, hourenergy.com, and get yourself some 5-Hour Energy products today, you can use our promo code LOCKEDONCFB and receive 20% off your order. This offer is only valid until September 30th and on orders and cannot be used with other promotions. The code is not good for subscription orders. Go to 5hourenergy.com today.
So the Oklahoma Sooners had some really, really positive performances in week 1. We talked about Grayson Halton. Who else stood out on defense to you, Jay?
On the defensive side, I think one that really deserves a lot of credit, McKinzie. And I say that because him and Kip did a fantastic job running that defense. My favorite thing in the game was I was watching the linebackers, and you watch McKinzie walk up, smack Dejon Terry on the behind, and he shifted over, basically moving him into the proper gaps for the play. And then we went out there and got a tackle for the loss. It was awesome. 9 tackles for the loss in the game. Those linebackers got command of this defense. They understand their assignments. They know exactly where to go. We are in great hands if Stutsman cannot play in the game. We don't have to be concerned about, like we did when we had to play against Kansas and Oklahoma State, where Stutsman had to sit out a few quarters. Those linebackers know what to do, know where everybody needs to be, and they're shifting everyone in the proper directions or the proper gaps. If they need to make play adjustments, McKinzie was on it. That's probably one player that was huge to me outside of a Robert Spears Jennings, who not only forced a fumble, recovered one.
Yeah, I really liked what McKinzie did. I liked the combination of Kobe and Danny Stutsman, 2 big linebackers that gives you a lot of physicality on the inside. So that's going to be really, really intriguing to watch the rest of the year. I thought Kip was really good as well. Lewis Carter stood out whenever he got on the field. He looked like a college football linebacker. All the praise that Brent Venables has been throwing on that dude since he's shown up on campus is warranted. That kid's going to be really, really good when his time comes. I don't think we've talked enough about Jackson Arnold, so I'm going to spend a little bit of time here. Jackson Arnold was really good. Yep. The 17 for 25, you want to talk about the yardage totals, it's fine. His QBR wasn't great, but his NFL rating was pretty good, 120s. If you look at his adjusted completion percentage, which Pro Football Focus likes to break down, take away the throwaways and the drops, and he completed 83.3% of his passes. That's pretty solid, right? Again, they did not ask Jackson Arnold to sling it around. They didn't ask him to throw down the field a whole lot. They didn't ask him to put it in dangerous spots. I thought he was on target. I don't think there was really a ball that was a bad ball that he threw. Yeah. There was one that was just out of the fingertips of Brennan Thompson, but he got his fingertips on it. And that's the only one that I really have like a question mark next to as far as the throw. The ball he threw to JJ Hester was like a beautiful dime. He just like put it in the bucket twice, and my man had a hard time with it. And so I thought he was in control of the offense. I thought he was in command, and he was putting his ball on target.
Yeah, no, I think I saw there was also one other play. He threw the ball behind like Bauer Sharp or something on a route. And I mean, again, that's just being nitpicky.
And it's going to happen
when it comes to this game.
Throws.
Right. There was 4 drop passes in the game. You get those 4 drops that were right in their hands. That puts you at 21 out of 25, and no one's saying a word, right? But at the same time, he got 4 touchdowns. Rushing wise, we had 6.1 yards per carry, and yeah, it was not very impressive, but we also played a lot of people in the run game, and you could tell that the most annoying part about the offense was that they were just testing out so many different scripted things, and they probably didn't even go all the way deep into whatever the script they wanted to run because we didn't even test out the deep ball. Now, as long as we got the run game going, the opportunity to leverage play action and go deep will be there. And I sense against Houston we'll get that, right? I don't think Houston's defensive line is any good. They just struggled against UNLV, so we'll talk more about them later this week. So honestly, this offense should see more. We should see more production. And I think the one thing we did get, and the one thing that really jumped out and stood out to me is that I think Jovantae Barnes is back to the Florida State Jovantae Barnes.
Yep.
He didn't look like this last season at the beginning of the year, even when he was recovering and they thought he was ready. Then eventually they just pulled him out. No, he looked like him because he was breaking tackles. He's cutting through holes. He's picking up big yards. He had, 6 yards per carry on his 5 carries in the game. He looked right. And then I'm terrified at the fact that we're going to start getting the Taylor Tatum chance probably very soon because he's real. Sam Franklin was solid, but Taylor Tatum's real. We got 4 running backs, and honestly, I'm hoping next week that we play Caleb Hicks just so we can see what he is because I'm in fear that he's most likely going to have to transfer.
Yeah, it's crazy that you're going to have to figure out a way to get 4 running backs the ball. And maybe 5 if Caleb Hicks shows out. Like, you're going to have to find enough snaps for all these guys. And I'm not down on Gavin Sawchuk. I think he's going to have better games than what he had this last week. I thought his 4th down run was very tough and physical, and he got the yardage that they needed to get. I really liked seeing that out of Gavin Sawchuk. But you're right on the money with Jovantae Barnes. He looked fresh. He looked crisp. He looked like he had burst. He was seeing it quick and getting downhill quick, and I really, really liked that about him. Sam Franklin, same. Whenever they were running between the tackles with Sam Franklin is honestly at times when the running game looked its most consistent. So that was encouraging. And then, the Taylor Tatum thing, you're going to have to get him on the football field. He's only been on campus for a few months, and he's already looking like an incredibly dynamic player, someone you're going to have to get touches to. It's fun to see that. Special teams, Tyler Keltner, we got a kicker, 50-yarder, hit a couple others, 3 for 3, made all of his extra points. The punting game looked good. The return game, I was not scared for them to return a punt. I felt comfortable whenever the punt was being launched that it was going to be okay. So that's an encouraging sign at least.
We made a 50, a 42, and a 24-yard field goal. John, we made a 50-yard field goal, and it looked like it could have gone an extra 10 yards. Look, I like to reserve judgment on kickers until we get into a situation where there's true pressure.
Right.
But it did still feel like there was pressure there because of the kicking woes we had last season in critical moments. So Keltner walked out there. Good thing is, y'all don't need to know his name. Y'all just need to know that we got somebody that can kick the ball and seems comfortable doing it. The question is going to be now, how does he perform if there's a pressure situation? And so hopefully he doesn't see a pressure situation until we travel to Auburn. Hopefully we make it happen in the 4 games up before that. But if not, I anticipate him being able to perform, especially against Tennessee when they come to the crib. That's going to be the one game, if any of them, that's most likely going to be one of those moments where you're going to have to leverage your kicker in a late second quarter play before halftime or something like that. I don't want it to be a close game, but again, I don't want him to have to kick until we're hitting the road.
All right, let's hand out a few awards real quick before we get out of here on today's episode of Locked On Sooners. Offensive player of the game for you, Jay.
Offensive player of the game's got to go to Deon Burks, right? 3 touchdowns, 5. Deon Burks his route running was crisp. He was everywhere that he needed to be for Jackson Arnold, and it looks like the relationship is tight. He's definitely my offensive MVP.
Yeah, no disagreement there. You only go with one guy when he scores 3 touchdowns in his debut. First time that's ever happened at Oklahoma or 3 receiving touchdowns. First time that's ever happened. You got to give it to the guy. Defensive player of the game for you, Jay.
Defensive player of the game, I'm going to give it to Robert Spears Jennings. He forced a fumble and he recovered a fumble. He was everywhere, right? It was really good to see him being comfortable with the quote-unquote reserve role. But you can tell that Zach Alley likes using at least 3 safeties and rotating a lot. Him, Peyton Bowen, and Billy, they had a field day. But I give it to Robert Spears Jennings. I like the fact that he was able to force a fumble and he recovered one.
Yeah, Grayson Halton for me, another 2022 signee, another 4-star prospect. Dude was just all over the place. Really, really exciting to see where he goes from here. Robert Spears Jennings was Oklahoma's highest graded defender, according to Pro Football Focus. Grayson Halton, number 2. And then special teams, is it the kicker?
Jaren Kanak for me. That return touchdown was awesome. It just was great. Like the awareness to grab it and go. Like he immediately grabbed it and picked up and he knew that he needed to run that in for a touchdown just so that he can make me look good because the defense did outscore Temple, like I said they would.
Yeah. Well, and hey, he was getting back to his Hayes days running the football there, so he looked really comfortable doing that. Give a little bit of an assist to Lewis Carter for forcing the fumble on the special teams play as well. It's great to see some of your impactful players, not just for this year, but for the future, getting some significant snaps on special teams and making an impact as well. Well, that's going to do it for today's episode of Locked On Sooners. Thanks so much for tuning in, being a part of the show. Subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcasts. We're free and available on all podcast platforms and on YouTube. Go check us out over on the socials, Twitter, TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, at Locked On Sooners. Follow Jay at Unfair Sports, myself at John 9 Williams. We'll be back next time. We'll continue to talk more about the Temple win. We'll break down what's going on at wide receiver with no Jalil Farouk and start getting ready for Houston. Recap the weekend that was in college football coming up on our next episode of Locked On Sooners. So again, stay tuned, subscribe wherever you get your podcast. But for Jay Smith, I'm John Williams. We'll talk to you then. Boomer.
Sooner.